talking about Old English and Old Norse, about Vikings bringing, their language, about the French and the Saxons coming through. Somehow you should have been able to explain all of that. You could have even used the tree analogy that they used in the video. If that would have helped you in any way, you could have done that as well, okay? Again, everything is closing on the 6th for Q3 work. So today we're going to start Module 8, Lesson 2. And again, we're talking about change over time, but now we're moving through Asia. That we will start today. We will finish it on Monday. It will be due on Monday. So there's no time to play with Module 8, Lesson 2, okay? So what I need you guys to do is to open up your Module 8 Lesson 2 course arc. And then from the introduction page, I need you to go make your copy of the Module 8 Lesson 2 journal. So this is where we're at, Module 8, Lesson 2. Okay. So we're going to look at different belief systems and how they've impacted and changed Asia over time. And we're going to identify how different groups have settled and created diversity in Asia. A lot of this is going to hinge around religion, right? We're going to be talking about Hinduism and Buddhism, especially when we're talking about Asia, okay? So if everybody can give me a thumbs up when you have your journal open. Yes, Joshua? Okay, not everybody has raised their hand or given me a thumbs up. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's start with, you should have opened up your Module 8 Lesson 2 journal. Right here, the blue link, right? That's how you get your journal. So let's go through the vocabulary. All right, so civil disobedience. This is Rosa Parks practiced civil disobedience when she refused to give up her seat on the bus. So the idea of civil disobedience is nonviolent non-participation in a law that you feel is unjust. Sit-ins, when Mahatma Gandhi did the salt marches, things like that, okay? And we will be talking about Gandhi. Nonviolence, talking about Martin Luther King Jr. held rallies and marches all aimed at changing laws using nonviolence, which he, of course, learned from Gandhi. Atheist is somebody who does not believe in religion or God per se, or a higher power. Okay. Caste. So many in India would like the strict caste system to go away. So officially the caste system, which is like a class system where people are divided into different areas, they're born into them, does not officially through the government exist, but it is still practiced in every way, shape, or form. A sect. The group did not have the same beliefs as the majority of the religion, so they left to create their own sect. So a sect would be like a group that has either pulled away from a main group, or it's a subgroup in a much larger group. Okay, so let's look at the vocabulary. The refusal to comply with certain laws or to pay taxes or fines as a peaceful form of political protest. Can you guys tell me what that one is? Civil disobedience. Good. The use of peaceful means, not force, to bring about political or social change. Nonviolence. Good. Person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of gods. Yep, that is an atheist. Each of the hereditary classes of Hindu society. Caste. Which then, of course, leaves us with sect, right? Okay, does everybody have this? Can somebody explain to Ryan where the playback lessons are? Because I guess, didn't make it clear enough, so maybe somebody else could make it clear in a way that I did not.
They're in modules.
My playback, which module?
I'm pretty sure. Well, when you open it up, it should just say right there in the first. So.
In the weekly agendas. Remember I said I made that one thing? So right here, Ryan, where there's a live meet video, where there's a link right there, that's the playback. Okay. All right. So the first question in our journal is describe the foundation of Hinduism. How do they practice their religion? So what you guys need to understand is Hinduism is not like a very specific, structured, you must do, believe, be kind of thing. Okay. It's a collection of many related religious beliefs and practices that are accepted within the framework of Hindu society. It has been around for over 3,000 years. It embraces a complex system of a lot of different rituals, practices, belief systems. You can have a Hindu who is a monotheist and believes that, you know, one, like Brahman is the absolute God and that all the other gods are just manifestations of that one God. You can have Hindus that are polytheistic and believe in all the multiple different gods in the pantheon. Hindus can attend temple. They can follow really strict standards of conduct and practice religious rituals, but they're not all like, if you don't do this, you can't be a Hindu. Okay. And literally it, like, their umbrella goes from, I mean, they say animal worship. What you need to understand is cows are absolutely sacred in Hindu belief. So they don't eat beef. Okay. And there's different types of mysticisms that kind of follow along. There's no one scripture, like, you know, the Christians have the Bible. They have a bunch of different writings and teachings. They are kind of like things that have like happened and writings that have taken place through time. So yeah, when we're talking about, like, you know, the foundation of Hinduism, so the idea is it literally came and it was in a region in the Indus River in northern India. We had groups coming through. The Hindus who lived there with the Aryans that came in, it was kind of like this conglomerate or mixture of some belief systems that he eventually kind of developed into what we consider Hinduism today. And so that is kind of like the foundation of Hinduism. And then it says, how do they practice their religion? There is no one specific way to practice your religious beliefs. So you could explain different things like animal worship. You could talk about mysticism. You can talk about going to a temple. You can talk about they can be monotheistic or polytheistic. All of those is how they practice their religious beliefs. Okay. And then while you guys are answering your question on Hinduism, I am going to mute myself. And so I'm going to play this quick video and then we'll come back.
Hinduism is the third largest religion in the world, with more than 1 billion adherents globally. It ranks just below Christianity and Islam and is considered to be one of the world's oldest active religions. So where did it all start? What's the history of Hinduism? First and foremost, Hinduism doesn't have one specific set of teachings, nor a specific holy doctrine or founder, though it may have originated as far back as 3000 BCE with the Indus Valley Civilization near the current border of Pakistan and India. Although Hinduism is commonly classified as a religion, it is also considered a philosophy and a culture because the belief system has no standard method of practice. It's considered to be one of the most tolerant religions in the world. Hinduism is closely associated with other Eastern religions. In fact, Hinduism incorporated concepts like karma and reincarnation around the same time that similar concepts emerged in Buddhism and Jainism. These ideas deal with the cycle of life and rebirth, as well as the consequences of a person's actions. Another major distinguishing feature of Hinduism, compared to most other active religions, is its belief in multiple deities. The primary three are Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, but there are many others. However, some Hindus consider these deities to be manifestations of a single cosmic spirit called Brahman, who is genderless and omnipotent. Many Hindus also consider the ancient Vedic texts to be sacred. The scripture was written in Sanskrit around 1000 BCE as a hymn to the gods. Within the Veda, multiple major and minor deities are described, including Indra, the king of gods, and Vishnu, a protector god. Today, Hindus recite verses from this text ritualistically during weddings and funerals. Currently, about 15% of the world's population subscribes to Hinduism, with roughly 99% of Hindus residing in India and Nepal. In nations like Mauritius, Fiji, and Guyana, Hindus also constitute a large minority. In America, there are also about 2 million Hindus who make up about 0.5% of the population. Hinduism started in South Asia and continues to thrive there. India's relationship with Hinduism is deep, with the Hindu Nationalist Indian People's Party currently wielding power. India's Prime Minister is also the latest in a long line of predominantly Hindu leaders. By 2050, Hinduism is expected to grow by 34% to about 1.4 billion adherents globally. However, as its influence is limited outside Asia, the religion will most likely stay in the number 3 spot behind Christianity and Islam for a long time to come. For a look at one extreme ancient Hindu practice, check out this video from This Happened Here Now.
The interplay of hot asphalt and cooling water might be a nod to the goddess Shitala herself, whose name translates roughly to the one who cools.
Thanks for watching TestTube News. Subscribe for new videos every day.
All right, so any questions on what you're writing for the foundation of Hinduism? My king, your hand is raised first. Okay, Adriel, your hand is raised.
How many sentences do you want?
I didn't give you a sentence amount, just enough to be able to explain both, describe the foundation of Hinduism, and then describe how they practice their religion.
Oh, so basically just as long as you can explain the music.
As long as you can answer the question on, like the first question, describe the foundation of Hinduism. If you can describe it in one sentence, then that's good. And then how do they practice their religion? If you can answer that in one sentence, that's fine too. Just make sure you just answer the question completely, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Kenneth, we are in Module 8, Lesson 2. We just watched the video on Hinduism. We just answered the first question in our journal. And we are moving into Buddhism. All right. So the thing that you guys need to understand, I don't think this one, okay. So Buddhism, Buddha, right, was Siddhartha Gautama, which was, he was a Buddhist, not a Buddhist, he was a Hindu prince. And he eventually started thinking that all life was suffering. And he has become known as the Buddha, the founder of Buddhism. Okay. Both Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism, which are the two major sects of Buddhism, if you will, acknowledge him as the religion's founding father. Where they split is like their teachings, right? So the Theravada school claims to remain faithful to the true tradition of Buddha's teaching. Okay. So we find Theravada in China. We find Theravada in Thailand. And then Mahayana, meaning as the means of salvation available to a larger number of people, is an adaptation. They are not as strict in the belief systems and the teachings. So the idea being, because it's not as strict, this really got started in Korea and Japan. It kind of opened it up to even more followers of it. The followers of Mahayana Buddhism actually call the Theravada Buddhists Hinayana, meaning that means the salvation restricted to a smaller number of people or simply greater or lesser vehicles. Okay. Mahayana branch of Buddhism actually contains a lot of different sects that kind of slightly differ from one another. The way to think of Mahayana is think of Christianity. So when you had the Roman Catholic Church and you had the Protestant Reformation, and that was the split away, Martin Luther, right? He split away from Catholicism. And so now you have all these Protestant Christian beliefs that all basically came from the Catholic Church. Then there was a split, and now you have all these different religions, but they're all based on Christianity. They're all sects of Christianity, kind of the same idea with Mahayana Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism actually has an emphasis on monks and nuns maintaining monastic lifestyle. It teaches that wisdom is the highest attribute. In Mahayana Buddhism, lay people can participate in meditation and worship and can seek enlightenment in the same way that monks and nuns do. So kind of, again, Theravada is much more strict and structured and rigid. Mahayana is more open to more people practicing it. Okay. So the question that we have for the second question in our journal is describe how Buddhism works. And I basically just kind of took the two main sects, right? Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism both acknowledge Siddhartha Gautama, but how they handle the teachings are very different. Theravada is very true to the tradition of Buddhist teaching. So I guess we could actually add in there, they are more strict or formal in their religious practices. Mahayana is actually more open to no, you don't have to write what I write. I'm talking about this to help you guys get ideas, to allowing more people to follow practice Buddhist beliefs. Okay. I'm just kind of talking as we're doing this and going over like what I think it's asking. If you think that there's something else I need to add to that, this is when you get to jump in and tell me. Absolutely. You can sure paraphrase or extend what I wrote. Yeah. I'm just, as you notice, a lot of times, like I'm talking as I'm typing, as we're kind of going over this. So, you know, I'm not putting this up there and saying, you have to write exactly what I'm saying. I'm just kind of, you know, talking out loud, right? Because sometimes, even though maybe I've read it off of the course arc or we've watched a video, as I'm talking while I'm typing, you know, maybe I'm saying it slightly different, or maybe I say something and you go, oh, wait, what about this or that? Okay. All right. So let's move on to Gandhi. So this is a quote from him. It says, if we could change ourselves, the tendency in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. We need not wait to see what others do. Okay. So in 1757, we know Great Britain took over control of India. India as a country has a history just as long, if not longer, than that of Britain. Becomes colonized by Great Britain. It becomes actually thought of as the crown jewel in the British Empire. While they were there, because they had a lot of trading spots in the subcontinent of India, it was kind of just, well, we're already here, we might as well just kind of take over, right? So British took the land, they collected taxes, they built railroads and canals, and really came down harsh on the Indians. A lot of Indians did not like it. There was a rebellion in 1857 that would originally be crushed by the British. And from there on out, there was just a lot of tension and back and forth. By the late 1800s, when Mohandas Gandhi and the modern Indian national movement begins, and I call him Mahatma. That is a nickname from Mohandas Gandhi. Mahatma means great soul. Yeah, that's what they call him. Usually they don't call him Mohandas Gandhi, they call him Mahatma Gandhi. He would utilize methods of civil disobedience and nonviolence to work to gain independence again for Britain. He learned this idea when he was in South Africa. South Africa was very, very discriminatory. Very much the Dutch who controlled South Africa. The white Dutch were in the minority. The Black Africans were in the majority, yet the white Dutch controlled South Africa. And so it was really bad. And Mahatma, being darker skinned, having come from India, was treated horribly. And he was really just troubled by this. He basically adopted this idea of satyagraha, is what it's called in Hindu, or passive resistance. It was his way of not cooperating with the authorities. He would remain active against British rulers of South Africa during his time in South Africa. And then when he came back to the subcontinent of India, he brought this idea with him. And he said, you know, the best way to do this is through economic independence. He urged Indians to manufacture their own cloth and make their own clothes. That way they didn't have to import stuff from Great Britain. He led boycott movements against British companies. And you have to understand, his thought process was, if we hit them in the pocketbook, it's going to get their attention. It wasn't always popular. A lot of things that took place during this time period when this is Mahatma, he went on religious fasts as ways of protesting. He was very much what they called civil disobedience, being very nonviolent, which would eventually, over time, not fast enough for a lot of his followers, but over time, would finally get to 1947, where Britain actually gave India their independence. Okay, this is not a question in your journal. This is just information on Mahatma Gandhi. So it says, question is, when did Britain take control of India? 1757, good. When was the Indian Rebellion? 1857, good. Many people did not like Gandhi's protest methods as they did not get quick results. Very much, yeah, it was true. Eventually, Britain would relent and grant India its independence, and that was in 1947. All right, so let's make sure everybody you have 1757 for when they took control, 1857 Indian Rebellion. It was true, people didn't like his methods because they weren't fast enough. And 1947 is when India was granted its independence. Does everybody have that? Okay. All right, so let's move on to cultural diffusion, which we've been talking a lot about. Okay, and that's the next question in our journal. It says, below are two images. They may look somewhat familiar, as we have McDonald's in the United States. It's an American company. However, they do not look like what we are used to seeing in the United States. So, I mean, if you look at this, the paneer salsa wrap, macalu tikka, the McPuff, the McCurry pan, the McVeggie, definitely not what you're not going to see anything in India that's going to have beef in it. Remember, cows are sacred, so they don't eat cows, no beef in any of the McDonald's there, which makes sense, right? If you are a company like McDonald's, are you going to have the same exact foods there that you would have in the United States? No, because people are not going to eat some of those things. So you're going to have to change your menu, right? Much like in Europe, cultural diffusion to and from Asia was facilitated by trade and travel. As both became easier, it was more likely that goods and ideas would travel easier. We've already read about the Crusades. We've already learned about the Silk Road and their impact on the spread of culture. So this is talking about modern cultural diffusion. They do. They do. So when they're talking about cultural diffusion, when the MGM Grand first opened in 1993, it looked like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite look like that today, right? And it was like walking in, being eaten by a lion because you had to go through the mouth. However, the owners soon realized this may be hurting their business because we rely heavily on the Asian market and Asian tourists. And according to a lot of Asian customs, walking into the mouth of the lion was unlucky. So obviously, you don't want to be unlucky if you're going somewhere to gamble. So eventually, MGM changed the interest rate to something more like what we see today. So in fact, the cultural diffusion, you can look it up. You can Google it, Adriel. Cultural diffusion of Asian customs has impacted like our city, just specifically, that's one thing here in the United States, right? And here in Las Vegas. And there is a link right here where you can read an article about Asian influence in Las Vegas. What about current influences from America to Asia? And so it talks about the McDonald's menu in India. You notice how like there's no beef, there's no McRib, no Big Mac, no cheeseburgers. It's not the same. You don't walk into the mouth of a lion. So, you know, they had to, yes, fast food, yes, McDonald's went over there, but then they also had to tweak it, right? And then this article talks about some items that are only available in China, which is the other visual that you had on there. I can't remember if this article will show us the actual. Come on, I'm waiting for it to load up. All right, so they have pineapple pies in China. There's a taro pie made with taro roots. Sichuan double chicken burger, right? So chicken sandwich. It's called congee, and basically it's like a porridge style rice mixture, and you can add other things in it. Red bean boba tea. So you can imagine, like, these are, none of these things are things that, you know, we have here, right, in our McDonald's. So while McDonald's went over there, they still have to be respectful of the culture that they are in, right? So cultural diffusion over time can be languages that evolve, as we see in lesson 1. They can be the spread of information and technology, as we've seen, but that can also be smaller, more personal things like the food we eat, or even the food that is found in our most popular restaurants in foreign nations. That is truly what is great about the globalization of culture. So our journal, the next question is, how does cultural diffusion work, and can it happen quickly? Well, guys, we've been talking about this since semester 1, right? Like, culture can be spread through trade and especially through technology. Because if we're looking at this in the modern sense now, we can see this in language, food, clothing, and religion. Today, having access to so many different cultures from around the world through the internet has allowed for culture to diffuse much more quickly than before, right? I mean, you guys have computers basically, right, in your smartphones. You have access to information at your fingertips. You don't have to wait for a show to come on television. We have cable. We have shows devoted to traveling around the world. You can look up anything on Google. What do you mean by their culture's flag? It's not a culture, Kenneth. They would have the country's flag. Is that what you're asking? Like having the Chinese flag outside of a Chinese McDonald's? I mean, in countries like McDonald's, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. And in fact, in the McDonald's in China, there are pictures of Chairman Mao, who was the guy who brought communism to China. He's everywhere. So, yeah. I mean, you're going to have to be respectful if you're a company going into that area, right? But I mean, think about like McDonald's French fries and chocolate shakes and stuff. Like that was not a thing that they had, and that's something that they brought over, right? Or if you think about the idea of having noodles. No, Samuel, we don't do that. And especially now with cancel culture, a lot of people don't want pictures of George Washington.
Wait, they canceled the guy who's dead, who's literally 6 feet
Oh,
under, bones
they
and all.
they pulled down statues of Thomas Jefferson because he
I
had
literally
slaves.
hate cancel culture so much. It's so unreasonable. I don't people you can't say anything on social media without people finding like offense to it. I can say like my opinion. I think having a fan in my bedroom is not good for me. Oh my god, how could you say that? That is literally the worst. You're literally invalid. I can't stand it.
That is what cancel culture is. Yeah, that is what it has become. Yeah. I don't know. That would be YouTube. Yeah. And unfortunately, we've become a country, well, it's kind of around the world, but I can only speak really towards like stuff here in the United States. If people become offended, somehow that's not allowed, or only certain people are not allowed to be offended, which to me is kind of like with our globalized cultures now, everything, you know what I mean, is so like a melting pot, right? We're not just the only melting pot. Like there's so much stuff from so many cultures and so many beliefs and all over the, yeah, all over, you know, the world that, I mean, I'm a person that is, you know, even if I don't agree with what your belief is, that's your belief system. We used to be like that, and now we've become I don't like that, and let's destroy things that we don't like. I have not seen them do that to food yet, but yeah. Hopefully it doesn't go to food, but I mean, it's kind of heading in that trend as well.
Yes, it has. Have you ever heard of like the vegans out there? There's actually people who I
Yeah.
saw it on social media where these like vegans, they were protesting at a local
Well,
supermarket and they like unscrewed milk and like spilled it all over the floor. Like what?
yeah.
You
Well,
can't.
and now though, think about this. This would be a thing for diffusion. People who had those belief systems, the only way that information could really get out there, right? Okay, Taj, would be if the news media showed up, right? Because nobody would know what was going on in little sections. And now, I mean, you can stream stuff, right? And spread it out and disseminate. That's diffusion, right? Disseminate that information. Okay. So you can like cultural diffusion it's ideas, it's food, it's language, it's clothing, it's belief systems, it's everything, right? And so like how does it work? Well, today with modern technology, it works at the tips of your fingers. Like you have access, not only do you have access to information, you guys could create your own YouTube channel or stream through social media, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's just so much more available today than it ever has been before. So I think cultural diffusion can happen a lot quicker than it used to. Okay.
Like to add on what Angeline, I don't know if I said your name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. But it's just like the generation, I don't know if you have saw, but on social media there's people who do not like vegans. Like you see that everywhere. There are certain people out there in the world that'll go in front of vegans protesting and eat meat right in front of them.
Oh yeah. I mean, and it's just, and it's also the exact opposite too, as well. You will have vegans who will throw blood, red paint, whatever, on people, or they will protest and block people from going into restaurants that serve meat. I mean, it's just become combative. I think that would be the best way to explain a lot of the way people deal with each other today. I think combative is the best, most generic word I can come up with. And you know, Ryan, it's everybody. it's not just one group or another group. It's whether, my king, if you're talking about gender or sexuality, or we're talking about vegans, or we're talking about, I mean, anymore, it's become very intolerant. If you don't agree with my belief system, then you are in the wrong. And I'm not only going to tell you that I think you're wrong, I'm going to do so in a very combative, angry way.
You just described the vegan teacher. That's exactly what she does. She makes everybody feel bad just because they're eating a certain way, and most people are like that. There was somebody outside, like the Smiths or whatever, and he was talking about how, oh, accept Jesus Christ as your savior. If you don't, you're gonna go to hell. This is that, and it was so. He made it seem like we were like sinning right there in the moment, like we were doing something completely horrendous and that we needed to repent. And I was like, excuse me, like, can you give us some space?
I mean, she is right about that. There's a lot of people who's actually doing that around in grocery stores. Like, you got people who sit directly in the middle of the store to cause a scene, and then when they get kicked out, they bring more people in to help, or the workers are in there trying to get the people who haven't done anything to a safe place because they might have a weapon or something on them, and it just keeps going, and police keeps getting called.
Yeah, it's, once upon a time you were allowed to have your own opinion and it was okay. Today, like, you know, my king was talking about that opinions don't work. It's that people don't respect each other's opinions, and understanding that like, opinions are your belief system. Right or wrong, agree or disagree, each person's opinion is their opinion. And you don't have to agree with it. You just don't also have to be combative if you don't agree with it. And I would think, my thought process is that with cultural diffusion and with globalization of culture and so many ideas and everything out there, that we would be, I mean, if you would have asked me a few years ago, I'd be like, we're becoming so much more accepting. And now, you know, we're not. We've gone in the exact opposite, way. In the, well, there was no such thing as canceled back then, Samuel. In the
Technically, it was, though.
Well, no. It's not. You guys, cancel culture is new. What you have is, in the 1800s, you had a large group of people who said slavery is bad and attacked the economic practice of the South, which relied heavily on slavery, and we get to what becomes known as a civil war. But it's not canceled, not in today's vernacular. It was not the same way.
Miss,
Like, yes, Adriel?
I was gonna continue. I was gonna kind of go off topic for a bit.
Well, I'm trying to keep us within culture. Okay, we're trying to stick within the culture and cultural diffusion.
I was going to talk about another thing about the cancel culture, but it looks like you weren't done yet. So
yeah, so let's go back to our primary source analysis. We only have like a few minutes left in class, like 5 minutes left in class, and I kind of want to get to the wheel of life. So this picture right here, you see all these parts around here. You see people going through different areas. You see Buddha. You see, this is known as the Buddhist wheel of life. Well, because not very many, I mean, yes and no, it was a different time period. You can't look at the 1800s from today's thought process, because they thought so much differently than we did back then. You can look back within the last 10 years with today's lens, but going even further back than that, you got to think about what it was like back then and how people thought. Okay. So this is the Buddhist Wheel of Life. This is on a Nepalese scroll painting. It's a painting from Nepal. The wheel includes scenes symbolizing the different phases of samsara, the cycle of life and death that encompasses the core principles of Buddhist beliefs. Remember, Buddhists believe in reincarnation, just like Hindus do. They believe in rebirth. They believe, just like Hindus do, that you work through things, you keep coming back in each life until you have worked through everything that you need to work through. And so that's kind of this idea of the wheel of life. So in our primary source, we know it's a painting of the Buddhist wheel of life. So what is one of the first things you notice? What can we put in here? I mean, for me, it's this vision. That was the first thing I noticed. What about the rest of you? What other things do you notice? Flying white heads. Okay, so we can put that in there. Very detailed. Okay, Adriel?
I was going to say that there's a big demon head with 3 eyes. I don't know what
Looks
that
like a demon's head. Okay. Mythical animals and ocean waves. Okay, so we can put any of those in here, right? So as you were seeing these, that's what you need to type in. What did you notice first? This is what you're typing in. What did you notice first in this picture? For me, it was just the vibrancy of the colors in here. So for me, I'm going to put the vibrancy of the colors. What do you think is happening? Well, I'm seeing Buddha, and I'm seeing things that look like people are going maybe to, someplace that they're supposed to go to. We would call that within Christianity, because they're the first ones to do the whole heaven and hell thought process. People are finally going to their final destination. But they don't call it heaven back then. It sounds wrong. Okay. It seems to be a lot of waves, a lot of clouds, a lot of animals. So for me, what do I think is happening? The cycle of birth and death. For me, that's what I think is going on. Who do you think the audience of the source is for? Who do you think this is for? I think this is for Buddhists. Yes, Ryan?
Oh, I was going to say the thing that you were going to say.
Okay, Buddhists. Okay. What can you learn from examining this? What are some things we can learn from this, guys? Woo! And guess what? Class is over. All right, so finish up this particular primary source, and then we will finish up the rest of our journal and the course arc on Monday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Also, when we're still talking about the cancel culture, I had one more thing to add.
We gotta go, Adriel. I
Wow.
kept you guys over, and I've got to go open up another class. I'm sorry. We can talk about this on Monday.
The
Bye,
teacher was
everyone.
having too much fun teaching.
I know, I was having fun. I know. I don't mean to keep you guys over. I'm sorry.
Wait.
All right. We'll talk about this on Monday. We'll talk more on Monday, Adriel. Okay?
All right.
Bye.
Bye.